I got one. This story goes back to about 2000, between 2003 and 2005, somewhere in that bracket. Up at Lake Isabella, we were raising our kids up there, and it was so cool raising our little boys at the lake. And we lived in a mobile home, and it wasn't more than 5 minutes from the lake. I mean, it was literally, in fact, we could literally get out to the main street, and I could go across the street and get right down to the lake. And we used to go down there all the time. That's where we did some crappie fishing with the old raft boat. That's a different story. This story takes us to a place called Paradise Cove. It was probably no more than 5-10 minutes away from my driveway. Now, what we normally do at Paradise Cove is we'd go there in the middle of summer because the lake would rise and it would flood the campground out. And we'd get into these flooded out campgrounds. So there'd be like a picnic table half underwater, and the trees are underwater, you know, half submerged, and half the campsites submerged. We'd just have fun with that. That's another story. Well, this story takes place later in the year because the water was down. So it must have been towards the end of summer. And we'd done a day trip. Because I had my Chevy van pulling the old pull trailer. At the time, I wasn't real happy with that old pull trailer. I just wanted something a little better. But I turned it into something really cool. We used it quite a bit. And we went down there for the day on this thing. Looking back, it was bitching. It was a bitching little trailer. So we're spending the day down there. You know, the reason we did that is because we could take a lot of extra food, and it was just fun. So what I would do, we could get right down to the water. So we were below the campsite, so the water had retreated, so we'd get right down to the shore. And that's the thing about Lake Isabella, is there's a lot of places you can get right down to the water. And kids would play along the shore there, and I'd fish. And I had these little fishing pole holders that I had mounted on the side of the trailer so I could cast way over the kids' heads and everything, and way out. And then I didn't have to have my poles on the shore where they could it would interfere with their playtime. I had them up high. Anyway, we're there all day. It's not really that hot, but the kids don't mind. You know how kids are. They'll swim in a cold pool, you know. So we have our day down there. Me and Mom are sitting there watching the kids play. It was our favorite thing in the world to do. Caught a few early on. The whole rest of the day, I'm getting skunked. It starts getting towards the end of the day. It starts getting dark. I'm still fishing. Kids still playing. We're picnicking, having a ball. Nothing. And so let me tell you about my setup here. I had 2 poles out, and I would have had 1 pole out with a pretty good size rod, pretty good size reel. Send it way out there. And then I'd always keep like a bass rod or even a trout rod with a reel about this size, just for sport. And I'd put like 8-pound test on that little line, so there wasn't a ton of line on there, but you know, I'm catching them pretty close to shore. And with 8-pound test, you know, I can bring in a 20-pound carp or catfish on 8-pound test. That's where the sport's at. It takes like an hour to pull that sucker in, you know. So that's what, the 2 setups I had. So it's starting to get dark now, and the kids are starting to get a little cold. So what happens is the sun sets over the mountain there, and it gets cold like that. Well, anyway, kids go into the van, turn the engine on, and start warming the engine up, start running the heater, because they all know that the last thing that happens on one of these trips, if I'm fishing, is the lines stay out in the water the longest. So the kids are in the van, everything's packed up. I still got 2 lines in the water. I'm just kind of waiting because there's still a little bit of fishing time, and I never want to reel in. I just want to fish forever. So it finally starts to kind of get dark and chilly. So I go to the 1 pole, the bigger reel, I pull it in and throw it in the back. And I'm sitting there, I don't want to go home yet. Well, I don't know how many times this has happened to me, but the minute I go to grab that fishing pole to reel it in, wham! Man, it right there. It starts peeling line like you wouldn't believe. I'm like, what the hell? And so what you do is you got to wait till that fish slows down a little bit before you even touch the drag or even try to set the hook or anything. And I'm just like waiting for this. The last time I had a fish peeling line like that was ocean fishing. You know, catching, you know, a yellowtail or some big mackerels or something. Now you got to remember, I don't got a whole lot of line. This may have been the actual reel. This is from that era, so it could have actually been this one. I'm looking at this thing. I'm standing on the shore, you know, my toes right with the water, and I'm looking at it, and I ain't got a whole lot of line left, and it's not stopping. Every time it would slow down, and I try to kind of get a feel for what's going on, what I got, off he'd go again. And this repeated itself 4 or 5 times. Till I look down and I ain't got a whole lot of line left. I got maybe 5 cranks left worth of line. Okay. What do you do? He's pulling on me. I can feel the weight of this fish. I don't know if it's a carp or a catfish, but I can feel him. So, what other choice do I got? I can't even begin to start trying to pull him in, because every time I do that, off he'd go. So I start following him in the water, and I get like knee deep, and he's peeling a little more line off. Pretty soon I'm like at waist deep, and you know that's where you got to make the commitment. You can get past your waist. So I'm in waist deep water now. Okay, so I'm walking as this thing's pulling on me, and by the time I get to my armpits, this is as deep as I'm gonna go. I look at my line, and there ain't no line left. I'm spooled out. All I got left is the knot on the spool. And he's pulling me. And I look up at the reel, which is above my head now. And I'm spooled out. And he's pulling me. And I either got to keep going, or I got to stand my ground. So I've got just the knot left. And I'm in armpit deep water, and I look up and it's still light enough. I remember clear as day, I remember watching the knot pull, and you know monofilament stretches, and it stretches more than you might think. And I see this knot pulling off of the spool above my head as I'm being pulled into the water, and I look up and it's pulling and stretching and stretching and stretching. Snap! I stood there. I'm like, that SOB took all my line, led me into the water, and got away. So I turn around, sludge my sorry butt back to shore. I'm soaking wet. I'm freezing at this point. Luckily, the fan was on. Just put a towel down on the front seat, kicked up the heater, and sat there and warmed up a little bit. True story. That is the one that got away. The big one that got away. Somewhere out in that lake, there's a big old fish tailing, you know, 200 yards worth of line, or 100 yards. I don't know how much line, you know, it goes on one of these things. Probably about 100 yards. I wonder if he's still out there somewhere. Paradise Cove. Many years back. Well, that's my story. We probably just took that 10-minute drive back home, and that was summers at Lake Isabella for us. It was, we probably went to the lake in some fashion or another 3 or 4 days a week consistently all through summer. And then in the wintertime, I would go up into the mountains up to the Kern River and trout fish a bunch. Took kids up there too a bunch of time. I got some stories from up there too that'll make your skin crawl a little bit. But anyway, that's my fishing story of this time around. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you later. Jeff out.